Alright, so we're going to be downloading and installing the Yi framework. But first I want to download a new editor. We've been using Notepad++, which is great for single files or if you're just editing a few files. But when you're dealing with a framework like Yi, you're dealing with an entire file structure, which you should have access to at all times. And IDEs, which are integrated development environments, they allow you to interact with your files easier. It also has better code hinting, and it's just heavier than than Notepad. And there's a bunch of them out there. There's Adobe Dreamweaver, Eclipse, but the one I want to use is NetBeans, and there's no real particular reason. It's just what I've used. I like the code hinting and just how it's all set up. So we're going to download NetBeans. It's free. So I'm just going to type in NetBeans in my browser. I'm not exactly sure what the website is. And NetBeans is also good for even desktop programming, C#, Java. Alright, so it's netbeans.org. I'm going to click on download. And we have a few different versions here, and they're tweaked toward the whatever language you're going to be developing in. So we are obviously developing in PHP, so we want this version. If we were doing Java or Java EE, we have these different versions, C++, but we're going to be using PHP exclusively. Alright, so I'm just I'll save this to my downloads folder. And I'll select open when done. Alright, so maybe it's not going to open. So I'm just going to go through this. What's this? Oh, yeah, we need the Java SE development kit, or the JDK, and we don't have that on this computer. So you may have it, you may not. Well, actually, it's prompting us to install. I didn't even have to go to the website, or maybe not. So I'm just going to type in JDK. Let's just go and download that. I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, so it's going to take us, we want to go to oracle.com. Let's just click on this link here, and we want the JDK for NetBeans, so I'm going to click on that. Actually, this is with NetBeans. We don't want that because we already have NetBeans installed, so we're just going to grab the Java platform. Just accept the license, and we want to download the correct version. I'm on a Windows 86. I'm on a 32-bit, so I'm going to download this file here. And this is 123 megabytes, so it might take a while, a couple minutes. So I'm actually going to pause it. Alright, so about a minute to download. I'm going to open that file. And let's run through this real quick. I'm just going to keep all the default options. Okay, I'm going to choose the default directory. Okay, so that's installed. Now we should be able to install our NetBeans. Alright. I'm going to keep the default location. Keep check for updates. Alright, so I'm not going to contribute to the project, and I'm going to click finish. So now we should have NetBeans installed. Click on the desktop icon, and where we have a welcome page, and we can start setting up projects. Let's do that. Let's set up a new project, and we want a PHP project, and we'll call this, we'll just call it Ye. And the folder that it's going to be in is going to be, it even goes right to it, it's the htdocs folder in our XAMPP server. We can choose the PHP version. I'd suggest the latest, which right now is 5.4, and we can choose to put the NetBeans metadata in a separate directory. I'm going to do that just so we don't have any confusing files, and then I'm going to click finish. Okay, so now we have our project. You can see we have our Ye as the root document, and then we have our source files, which by default just gives us an index.php with an HTML structure. So now we're ready to start programming. So now what we need to do is actually download Ye, and we can even go to the htdocs folder, and you can see that it created that for us. And we have this index.php. And there's something I do want to change or just check. I'm going to go to my XAMPP directory, which is in my C drive, and I'm going to go to the PHP folder, and then I want to go to PHP ini, and I want to open this. I'll open it with Notepad++. And Ye uses a special debugger called xdebug, so we want to make sure that that's enabled. So I'm going to do a Control F to find, and I'm just going to type in xdebug and click on Find Next. And down here, now anything with a semicolon at the start of it, it's commented out. It's not being used. So what we want to do is uncomment this here, this Zend extension, which points to php xdebug.dll. So we just want to delete that semicolon. Now we want to look for the xdebug remote host. So we're going to search for xdebug.remote host, and is that the one we want? Yeah, so we're going to uncomment this here. 127.0.0.1 is basically it's the same as localhost, so it's just saying our remote host is going to be our local host. And we also want to uncomment the xdebug remote enable, and we also want to change it to 1. Where is it? Xdebug remote enable, yeah, we want to change that to a 1. And we're going to uncomment the remote handler, and that should be it. So I'm going to save that file and get out of Notepad. So that's all set. Now we can go and actually get the framework. So we want to go to yeframework.com, and we're going to go to Downloads Framework, and we want to go scroll down, and we want the source code, which is a tar.gz file. Actually, we don't want that. We want the zip file because we're on Windows. If you're on Linux, then that's another story. So I'm going to download the zip file. And let's open that up. So this is the package that Yi comes in, and the only folder we're interested in here is the framework folder. This is just demos, requirements, change logs, things like that. So the framework is where the actual structure is, and with this framework it's a little different because we need to put this folder outside of our web directory. We're not going to just put these files inside our Yi directory because we'll get a forbidden access error. So we're actually going to put this in our XAMPP folder. So I'm just going to copy, actually I'm just going to open up my C drive, XAMPP, and I'm going to put the framework folder right in here. Did it go over? Okay. Now what we're going to need to do next is we need to open a command line and create a web app, and we'll create that web app inside of our Yi folder. Alright, so now what we want to do is open up a command line. So we can go to this input box and just type in cmd, and we want to navigate to that framework directory. So to go back, right now we're in users/brad, so I'm going to go cd ... brings us to users, cd ... brings us to the C drive root. Now we want to do cd XAMPP and then cd framework. Now this is where we're going to create our write our command to create a web app, but there's one thing we need to do first. So I'm going to close out of this. We need to go to, let me see here, go to the framework folder, and we want to edit the yik.bat file. Now yik is what generates the app for us. Alright, that's the command we're going to use to generate our web app, but we need to edit this. If we click on edit with Notepad++, right here it says php command equals php.exe. Well, if we run our command now, it's going to get an error because we need to put the path to this file. So wherever our php.exe file is, we need to put the path right here, and we can find that in the XAMPP folder and the PHP folder. I think it's here, right here, php.exe. Let's go to properties. I don't know if there's a better way to get the file location. Right here, C drive /XAMPP/PHP. That's where that file is located. So I'm going to copy that and go back to that bat file, and I'm just going to paste this in. And I'm going to just save that, Control S, and get out of there. Now we should be able to run our command to generate our web app. So we want to run yik web app, and then we want to put the location of our web app, which in our case we want it to be in the htdocs/yi folder. So it's going to be in the C drive under XAMPP, htdocs, and yi. Alright, so it's asking if we want to create the application. I'm going to type Y and enter. It's asking if we want to overwrite. We might have some files in there, so I'm going to say yes. And it should be created. So now if we go to our localhost /ye, and here's our web application. So we have successfully installed Ye on our web server. We have a welcome page, we have an about page, we have a contact form, and we even have a login form. So it gives us this shell that we can use to work off of. And sometimes we'll work off of this, or sometimes we'll just totally start from scratch. So we have successfully installed it. In the next video we'll look into configuration, and then we'll look into actually creating an application.